When we normally conceptualize time, we're basically entirely trapped in our own biology.
Right, yeah.
I mean, we think in terms of 52 weeks or maybe 80 years if we are, particularly lucky. We view a blossoming flower as just this complete isolated event.
Oh, for sure. It's a very human-centric way of looking at the world.
Exactly. But today, our mission for this deep dive is to completely break out of that biological trap. We're going to explore how radically shifting your perception of time can fundamentally rewrite things.
And specifically, viewing existence through the lens of a centuries-old consciousness.
Yes, because doing that, well, it can completely change how you process your own grief, your resilience, and your connection to the world around you.
And to do that, we are diving into a truly extraordinary collection of prose, photography, and poetry titled What the Tree Saw.
Such a good title.
It really is, and it's created exclusively by Olga Foreign. The critical response to this work has been, well, it's been fascinating to track.
Yeah, I saw the Poet Plays book review recently highlighted it.
Right. They drew some heavy comparisons to Mary Oliver's nature poetry and Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree.
Which makes sense on the surface.
It does, but looking through the source material, it becomes immediately clear that Olga Foreign is attempting something much more psychologically ambitious than just a standard ecological text.
Ambitious is like the perfect word for it. I spent the weekend poring over these pages.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it completely dismantled how I look at the greenery in my own neighborhood.
I had the exact same reaction.
The entire narrative is anchored by this single perspective, right? An ancient, unnamed tree standing as a silent guardian over a garden.
Yeah.
But before we get into the heavy philosophical concepts the book introduces, we really have to look at the crucible in which this project was formed. The author's note reveals this wasn't just some whimsical creative exercise.
Not at all. The context gives the entire book its weight, really.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So Olga Foreign explains that the concept took root, no pun intended, during the darkest days of the global pandemic. In a period characterized by intense collective human panic and isolation, she and a circle of friends found a strange refuge in a local garden.
Which is so relatable. I think a lot of people sought out nature during that time.
Exactly. And she describes the sensation where, quote, the earth stepped forward with comfort. While the human world was essentially collapsing into uncertainty and lockdown, this ancient tree just maintained its watch.
Just steady and unbroken.
Yeah, offering the exact same shade it always had.
Okay, let's unpack this because that makes perfect sense when you start to examine the central premise of the book's first section, which is called Tree Time.
Tree time. I love that concept.
It's brilliant. For an organism that has been standing in the dirt for 500 years, a global human crisis is just, well, a passing season.
Yeah, a blip on the radar.
Right. The text establishes that the tree measures its life not in years, but in roots. Meanwhile, the flowers blooming around its base, they measure their entire existence in just a few hours of sunlight.
The psychological disparity there is staggering, honestly. Because the flowers live such unimaginably brief lives, they possess zero generational memory.
Nothing at all.
The text notes that they genuinely believe the world has always been exactly as they experience it in their fleeting moment of bloom.
And if we really think about the mechanics of that memory gap, the tree essentially functions as a biological hard drive. But it's formatting data in a profoundly different way than we do.
How so?
Well, a computer stores memory in abstract code, right?
Right.
A tree, however, stores memory in physical architecture.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It uses the chemical composition of the soil, the physical scarring on its bark, the density of its carbon rings. When the tree looks at a blooming flower, it doesn't just see a petal.
It sees the history.
Exactly. It physically remembers the chemical signature of that flower's great-great-grandmother rising from the exact same patch of dirt centuries prior.
Which is wild to think about. And that physical archiving completely upends our human concept of originality.
Oh, the part about the roses.
Yes. There is a specific narrative in the book that brilliantly illustrates this, focusing on the garden's first roses. The text recounts how the original rosebush, the mother plant, began to weaken and fade over time.
Right.
And to save it, humans arrived, wielding tools to carefully graft a cutting of that fading mother onto a hardier stem.
So the mother plant eventually died out, but her genetic lineage survived through that human intervention.
Exactly.
And the irony, as the tree observes, is that the young roses blooming today from that graft have completely forgotten that they were engineered.
They have no clue.
None. They wake up to the sun, stretch out their red petals, and genuinely believe they are, quote, gloriously original. They think they've just spontaneously invented their own beauty.
It is a beautiful kind of arrogance, isn't it?
Huh.
They think they invented the color red, but the tree remembers the careful hands that grafted their ancestors for survival.
Yeah.
And the tree actually applies this vast historical memory to the concept of biological mutation as well.
Which I found so interesting.
Right. Where a botanist looks at a garden and sees genetic drift or Darwinian competition, the tree views the process as this massive narrative experiment.
Yeah, the text states that the tree sees mutations as simply the earth trying new stories.
Trying new stories.
Some of those stories are successful and they flourish, while others fail and fade away quietly, leaving nothing but a soft fingerprint of memory on the tree's bark.
It's a very poetic way to view evolution.
It is, but let me push back on this vast perspective for a second.
Okay, go for it.
If I'm an organism living for hundreds of years, watching thousands of generations of flowers sprout, think they are the center of the universe, and then die 5 days later, well, the natural psychological defense mechanism would be detachment.
Oh, sure. You just tune it all out.
Right. How does the tree avoid becoming entirely cynical or emotionally numb to these tiny, fleeting lives?
It's a really logical assumption to think extreme longevity breeds apathy. But the source text subverts that expectation entirely. Yeah, the tree doesn't have the luxury of detachment because it is thrust into the role of a guardian, and quite literally, a deity.
A deity. Wow.
The dynamic between the canopy and the soil is so intense that the flowers actually believe the tree is their god.
And the tree is fully aware of this misplaced worship.
Yeah.
It knows it isn't divine,
Yes.
yet it chooses not to correct them. The text explains it allows the title because their belief is gentle and harms no one.
It's providing psychological shelter just as much as physical shade.
That's a great way to put it. But stepping into that role creates a devastating emotional burden.
It really does. We see this crystallize in a moment where a newly sprouted flower leans toward the massive trunk and asks a simple, terrifying question.
Will you keep us safe?
Exactly. Will you keep us safe?
And the tree possesses enough wisdom to know the limits of its own power. I mean, it knows it cannot negotiate with a lightning strike.
Right. Or stop a sudden freeze.
Or hold off the hunger of a passing animal.
Oh.
So it offers the only truth it has. I will try.
Promising to try is the definition of an impossible vow.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you promise to try, you inherently open yourself up to the guilt of your eventual failure. And the book visualizes this guilt so brilliantly. The tree doesn't just feel bad, it internalizes the failure physically.
Yes. If we look at the mechanics of falling leaves, it becomes heartbreaking.
Tell me about it.
Well, the tree has to shed its leaves, right? It's a biological imperative. As it releases them, it whispers for them to drop softly.
He sobs softly.
But gravity and wind are completely indifferent. When a heavy leaf falls and crushes a fragile, newly opened petal beneath it before its time, the tree absorbs that tragedy.
It's a literal physical reaction.
Yeah, the text describes a literal ring deepening inside the trunk, etched with guilt.
By linking emotional trauma to the biological process of forming tree rings, the author Olga Forin forces us to recognize the unseen weight of caretaking.
It's so heavy.
The rings aren't merely a record of rainfall or drought anymore. They are a ledger of failures and survival. The tree even attempts to act as a physical shield against extreme weather.
Like with the floods.
Yes, when torrential floods threaten to drown the seedlings, it spreads its canopy wide, trying to physically push back the sky.
But it's a futile gesture. The water always gets through.
It always does.
But the saving grace, the thing that keeps the tree from just collapsing under the weight of its own guilt, is the profound capacity for forgiveness inherent in the flowers.
They are very forgiving.
The tree notes that even after a devastating flood, the flowers that survive don't hold resentment. Their trust is inherited the way light is inherited by dawn.
That's beautiful, but they forgive the weather because the weather is a mindless force.
True.
However, that brings us to the element in the garden that the flowers cannot comprehend, and therefore they cannot easily forgive.
The one disruptive force that seems entirely intentional. Humanity. Yeah. If you zoom down to the perspective of a root system or a fragile stem, a human being is an apocalyptic event.
Oh, a total nightmare.
We are creatures of instant, inexplicable destruction. A flower's entire existence can be abruptly ended just because a giant shoe steps slightly to the left, or because sharp shears appear out of nowhere.
The book vividly describes the terror of modern landscaping. The tree talks about shiny metal mouths, which we can understand as lawnmowers or excavators,
Right.
tearing the earth open with a vibration so violent it makes the tree's deep roots flinch. The flowers are constantly trembling in the wake of this chaos, basically asking the tree why humans behave this way.
And the tree's response to the flowers is one of the most philosophically rich moments we reviewed.
It really is. What's fascinating here is how the tree acts as an advocate for us, which is so surprising given the destruction it witnesses.
It defends us.
It does. The tree explains, quote, "Humans are born with storms inside, but many carry rain too. Rain that nourishes, rain that remembers how to fall softly."
Wow. That metaphor of humans carrying both the storm and the rain, I mean, it completely reframes our relationship with nature.
It softens it.
Yeah. And the book provides a really powerful anecdote to support this. It recalls a period of brutal drought. The heat was relentless, the soil had cracked apart like ancient pottery, and the water table was completely depleted.
So the tree was effectively failing its promise to protect the garden.
Exactly. The canopy was thinning, unable to shield the wilting flowers. And then the chaotic apex predators of the garden, humans, arrived.
But they didn't bring shears or metal mouths.
No, they brought buckets.
Yeah, the text describes them kneeling in the dirt with immense reverence, pouring water onto the cracked earth slowly and intentionally, as if they were delivering something holy.
And the flowers, practically waking from a nightmare, drank it in.
Observing this, the tree reaches a grand conclusion about our species. It says, humans forget their gentleness more often than they lose it.
That distinction is critical.
It really is. It suggests that our capacity for destruction is often a byproduct of distraction or, internal storms, not an inherent lack of empathy.
The gentleness is always there, waiting to be remembered.
And because the tree understands this paradox, it chooses to absorb the ache of the earth. It suspends its judgment, acting as a crucial mediator between the fragile, trembling ecosystem of the flowers and the heavy-handed chaos of humanity.
It catalogs our storms, but it also faithfully records our rain.
Yeah.
And that concept of mediation, of standing between two distinct worlds, it actually serves as the architectural foundation for the book itself.
How so?
Well, the Poet Plays book review pointed out that Olga Forin doesn't just write about this bridging effect. She forces the reader to experience it through the book's unique structure.
Oh, right, the visual poetry.
Exactly. She pairs lush, highly intimate flower photography with traditional haikus.
The review accurately described these haikus as emotional echoes of the images. By placing a stark three-line poem next to a vivid visual, the reader is just forced to pause and synthesize the two mediums.
So let's analyze a few of the specific pairings that really cement the themes we've been unpacking.
I'd love to.
There is a striking photograph featuring a cluster of purple and yellow petunias. And the haiku paired with it explicitly maps out the spatial and spiritual hierarchy of the garden. It reads, "Man kneels on the earth, flowers reach for open sky, tree bridges their prayers."
It takes the physical reality of the garden, roots in the dirt, canopy in the air, and it elevates it to a theological framework.
It really does.
Man is grounded, weighed down by his storms. The flowers are reaching upward, seeking divine intervention. And the tree is the physical architecture connecting the grounded human with the hopeful bloom.
And hope is a word that gets redefined entirely in this collection.
Oh, completely.
It strips away the passive greeting card version of hope and replaces it with something much more gritty.
Like the dahlia picture.
Yes. There's an image of a dark red dahlia, accompanied by a line that essentially serves as the thesis statement for the garden's survival. It says, "A blossom opens not because the world is safe, but because it hopes."
If you consider everything we've discussed, the falling leaves, the shears, the floods, the drought, the garden is definitively not safe.
No, not at all.
Therefore, the biological act of blooming is an act of sheer defiance.
It is practicing the art of hope, one petal at a time.
I love that.
And the book is equally focused on the invisible mechanics of that resilience. Another photograph features a delicate white flower with a bright yellow center.
Right.
The accompanying text reads, "Each return begins with a humble, quiet rest deep beneath the ground." We are so conditioned to celebrate the visible bloom, but the tree demands we respect the quiet, unseen labor happening in the dark soil during the winter.
The winter requires as much energy as the spring.
Exactly.
And interestingly, as we move through this visual poetry, the boundary between the observer and the observed begins to dissolve. The author actually steps into her own mythology.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's a brilliant, self-aware moment. We see a photograph of a perfectly simple white daisy.
Yeah.
The caption beneath it notes, "Flowers bow slightly when Olga passes through them, even roots know her."
By naming herself, Olga Foreign shifts from an objective journalist documenting a garden to an active, recognized participant in the ecosystem.
It recontextualizes the author's note we discussed at the start. Taking walks in this garden during the pandemic wasn't just a coping mechanism.
No, it was the cultivation of a relationship. The ecosystem recognizes the person who consistently shows up to witness it.
And if you trace that thread of showing up and bearing witness to the book's dedication, the entire project just snaps into focus.
The dedication is so powerful.
The book is dedicated to the big girls, which refers to her close circle of adult female friends. She draws a direct, unbroken line between the ancient tree and the women in her life.
The implication is profound. Just like the sprawling tree, these women provide shade for one another.
They stand strong through shifting seasons.
Yeah, absorbing the inevitable storms of life to protect their community. It takes the abstract concept of ecological resilience and proves that it is actually a daily, practical choice in how we care for the people around us.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of the text. In Part 3, the tree distills centuries of observation down to a single, comforting truth.
Nothing is permanent, but nothing is truly lost.
Yes, it's the law of conservation of energy applied to memory and beauty.
Every vibrant color that inevitably fades isn't gone. It becomes the accumulated memory that instructs the next generation of roots how to pull nutrients from the soil.
The tree has witnessed entire lineages of flowers go extinct, leaving nothing but a ghost of a scent.
Yet it constantly watches the wind carry in new seeds, beginning the cycle again.
But the true emotional climax of the book isn't about the tree's vast wisdom. It's about a humbling realization.
Right.
For hundreds of pages, we've watched the flowers treat the tree like a god because of its massive size and unending longevity. But the tree finally admits a secret to the reader.
It knows that sheer survival is not the same thing as holiness.
Exactly. The tree confesses that it is merely a wooden ledger, a keeper of stories for whatever dares to grow in its shadow.
It explicitly states, quote, "The miracle has never been me."
Which gave me chills. The true miracle, in the eyes of this ancient guardian, are the flowers themselves.
The tree refers to them as brief poems.
Brief poems. They're these brilliant, fragile entities that are destroyed almost as soon as they figure out the shape of their own beauty.
Yet, despite the shears and the floods and the absolute certainty of winter, they are the ones who rise out of the dirt again and again.
They teach the world how to begin.
It completely inverts the power dynamic. The towering ancient guardian is actually bowing its head in awe at the sheer bravery of the tiny fleeting things it protects.
When you digest a perspective like that, it demands introspection. So I want to ask you, the listener, to evaluate your current season of life.
Yeah, are you operating as the tree right now?
Right. Are you the sturdy architecture in your family or community, absorbing the ache of the world, providing shade, and holding the heavy stories of the people who rely on you?
Nor are you the flower?
Are you living bravely in a chaotic, brief season, practicing the defiant art of hope, and trying to bloom even when the world feels entirely unsafe?
We undoubtedly transition between both of those roles as we navigate different phases of our lives.
Oh, for sure.
But if we return to the biology of how the tree processes its journey, it leaves us with an incredibly profound lens through which to view each other.
Definitely.
We talked about how the tree physically records its traumas, the devastating droughts and the agonizing guilt of its failures into literal, tangible rings hidden beneath its bark.
The physical archives of survival locked inside the wood.
Exactly that. It forces you to wonder about the human equivalent.
How are we carrying the physical rings of our own emotional and ecological histories?
Right. What profound burdens, unspoken memories, and agonizing seasons of survival are permanently etched inside of us.
Entirely invisible to the people who walk past us every single day.
A walking time-lapse of invisible rings shaping the exact architecture of who we are today.
Something to mull over the next time you find yourself standing quietly in the shade of an ancient tree.